It's time now for our business update. And as the World Economic Forum winds down after a week of intense discussion, networking and consensus building in the snowy Swiss mountain retreat of Davos, we can cross live now for the very latest to France 24's Yuka Royer. Yuka, great to have you with us this morning. So it's the final day of this marathon event and it's shaping up to be another packed morning. Take us through it.
Well, good morning, Sharon. It is cold and snowy in Davos this morning. Now it's packed with, again, with a lot of events looking ahead to the year. We've just heard a report about Japan's space exploration. Well, one of Japan's astronauts, a retired astronaut, is actually taken to the stage in one of the panels this morning. There's a lot of attention as to what what lies ahead this year in 2024. It's a year that's going to be an election year. It's been at the top of many people's mind. More than people in more than 50 countries, in the numbering about 4 billion, will be heading to the polls this year in some high-stake elections. Some will be peaceful and democratic, but others will have high stakes in them, including, of course, well, we've just had one in Taiwan, but also there are Indian elections coming up. There's Iran is going to the polls, and of course in November we'll see Americans going to the polls to elect their next president, and that's been really high on people's mind. Yesterday there was a panel discussing the possibility of what happens in a possible Republican administration, and that panel was absolutely packed, just showing the level of interest and concern about what the outcome of US elections will bring.
And Yuka, another issue that's been weighing on the minds of business leaders there in Davos, the slowing global economy. What exactly have they been saying about that?
Well, there's been some mixed reactions. A lot of people I've been talking to here are cautiously optimistic, despite inflation, despite the cost of living still remaining high, and of course, despite a lot of geopolitical tensions that could affect global trade, disrupt supply chains. Now, a highlight of the final day here in Davos is the Global Economic Forum. Like in previous years, it will be the final panel of this year's event. The IMF's Kristalina Georgieva, as well as the European Central Bank's Christine Lagarde, will be taken to the stage later on to give their take on what the year ahead will look like in terms of the global economy. Now, earlier I spoke I asked that question to Julie Teigland, Managing Partner at EY, Just Question, and I asked her what her clients were feeling about the year ahead.
2023, that was a big fight for, are we going to get into a recession, yes or no? We've avoided that curve pretty much, some small isolated exceptions. I think 2024 will start slow, and if I could say lumpy, really not certain what things are going to happen with respect to interest rates, market priced in a lower drop than actually is now predicted. I think you're going to see inflation take a little bit longer to come down than as expected. And geopolitics are driving uncertainty. So those three factors are going to mean 2024 at the beginning, probably a bit lumpy. I expect it to get better as the year goes on and hopefully kind of end on a strong high note. So I kind of like a steam engine, right? It's going to start slow and it's going to keep going. But I do know there's a lot of uncertainty in the markets right now, making our predictions really tough. Interest rates, inflation, geopolitics, all of this plays a role. And I'm not even mentioning the shipping crisis. So
this year's the World Economic Forum came at a particularly testing time. What have leaders been most concerned about, most focused on this week?
I have to say geopolitics has really almost dominated the stage in terms of concerns as to where it's going. It's impacting the markets. You feel that. And as a second, I would say if that's the downside, there's some upside in terms of the focus around AI and uplifting spirits around what that could do, transforming the power of the individual, transforming companies longer term, and providing more insights and tools for people to work with.
So there's a lot of excitement about AI, but there are also quite a lot of worries about where the technology will take us, will take humanity.
It's true, and there's been a lot of conversations around AI for good, getting the governance right, actually complying with the regulation around the new AU AI Act, making sure that they've got that covered, but a lot of excitement about also not seeing the end of where it's going to go and the abilities for it to propel us positively into the future has been some of the great conversations that we've had. Always with a measured look. We've got to get the risks, the control, the governance right, but we've got to be able to capitalize on the opportunities. And that's people talking about those opportunities, discussing the use cases. We acknowledge that there's a lot more work to do, but hopefully for a great outcome.
As we just heard there, artificial intelligence has been one of the big themes this year at the World Economic Forum. There are a lot of promises and a lot of optimistic views about the technology, but also a lot of worries, especially in an election year. Earlier this week, before the forum kicked off, the World Economic Forum released a report citing disinformation fueled by artificial intelligence as the biggest risk facing the world this year.
Yuka, thank you so much for that. That's Yuka Royer joining us live there from Davos.